Okay, so you brought a bill that got an RS yesterday on banning weather modification in Idaho.
Yeah,
Right.
I actually brought two bills, and last year Tennessee was one of the first states that passed any type of weather modification ban whatsoever. Now in Idaho we have cloud seeding, and I was actually on the Ag Committee on the House side when that came into our state. So we've had cloud seeding for a few years in code.
Right, because we've had it like 50 years in practice.
Right. And but there's this whole other area, I guess, if you will, on weather modification geoengineering that has to do with like banning the sun or putting stuff into the air to try to create atmospheric conditions of sorts.
God.
And it sounds really out there. But last year, after Tennessee passed their bill, I was getting all these emails about, when is Idaho going to do this? What's going on in Idaho? And so I started really looking into it. And the more I looked into it, the more I started finding sound documentation showing that we have actually participated in a lot of this.
Okay, you got to tell me, where has Idaho participated in weather modification outside of cloud seeding?
Well, and I'm not talking necessarily Idaho participating in that, but the United States as a whole, our government as a whole, there was a operation called Operation Popeye that happened during the Vietnam War that we utilized, and we actually created acid rain to fall.
On the Viet Cong.
Yeah, to try to slow down the Vietnamese from getting to like their supplies and their weapons and stuff. And we created acid rain doing that. And the military was given money and the ability to work on weather modification. So
and that was during the Vietnam War, right?
There was times, there was a trend that took place. So starting in the 40s, actually, there was stuff going on during the 40s. And then, yes, during the Vietnam War. And then there was this movement that I found that states started putting bans into place on weather modification. So states like Pennsylvania and
Tennessee, obviously.
Well, Tennessee was early, but or was just like last year. But before that, there were several states that actually put stuff into play in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and so there were laws on the books for all sorts of different things regarding weather modification and bans and stuff on it. And then those either expired or they removed them. But for instance, in 1975, one thing that I found, and this is the section of code that I ended up using, is that Idaho put in code a weather modification district. And so there was this district that counties could participate in. If 50 people came to their county commissioners and decided that they wanted to create a weather modification district, that they could petition the county commissioners to put it on the ballot and pass it, and then the county could actually leverage taxes off of it. And there was only one area in all the state of Idaho that ever did it, and it was Oneida. And they leveraged taxes 3 different times in the 70s against this weather modification district. And then we don't know what happened to the money. I've never been able to find out what actually happened with the money, what it went to, anything along those lines. But after that, they never touched it again. They even forgot that they had it. There was an article written in 2013 about it. They didn't even know they had it anymore. So I saw this and I thought, well, that's really weird, because that was in the 70s to create a weather modification district. So there was evidently stuff going on in conjunction with the other laws and everything that I found in other states that had to do with weather modification, that there was some movement of some sort that was going on during that time period.
Yeah, like 40 or 50 years ago.
Something, yeah. And so, but I've had so much information that's been sent to me, different things that I've been able to see. I have White House documentation from 2023 in regards to solar radiation modification, where they gave like $11 billion to different entities to work on how they could save the planet from global warming by being able to produce stuff in the air to help block out the solar radiation coming through. So there's lots of different documentation that's out there to be able to look at to say, this really isn't like a conspiracy theory. There's actually things that have been going on, statements made, money given, reports written that have to do with trying to create changes in the weather, changes in our atmosphere, changes with the sun. So I decided to go ahead and do that. Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Awesome on all of this. So first off, within Idaho, did you find any contemporary evidence of weather modification happening within Idaho's borders?
So the only thing that I have found so far is just pretty much the cloud seeding that we have going on with creating rain.
Okay.
And so that's been primarily what I have found. There are currently 18 states that have either passed legislation or are currently running legislation regarding either cloud seeding and or geoengineering weather modification right now.
Yeah.
And so my premise with this one is just to be proactive in our approach. Like we just don't want, we like our sun. We know what fires do with agriculture. When we have fires that happen and the smoke's blocking out the sun, I've had both the potato industry and the sugar beet growers tell me that the smoke really impacts the growth of those products when we have smoke. And so we don't want to mess with the sun. We want to keep the sun the way it is, right?
Yeah.
And so my approach with this particular piece of legislation is just to take that proactive step, saying you can't come in here and spray stuff into our area to try to block the sun.
Great.
So,
and the reason I ask is because I just want to know, it's like, okay, I understand what you're saying. Like, I'm not in favor of any of this, but I also want to confirm, like, okay, this is not happening right now.
Yes.
So when people, because like I had some conversations, great conversations with, Idaho Power and then the Idaho Water Resource Board. And every time I would post those, people were like, hey, this is like, we have cloud weather modification right now going on in the state of Idaho. And I'm like, I don't think we do. And if we do, let me know. So it's great to hear you confirm. It's like, no, we do not have weather modification going on right now.
Not that I found.
We do have cloud seeding, and that is absolutely something that the Idaho Water Resource Board is in charge of regulating the operators. And, again, they're very clear on what they use and all of these things, but there is no other weather modification going on in Idaho.
Like I said, not that I can report on, that I can find.